So welcome everyone to this session today. So this session is basically for all the CISA aspirants to give them a grip as to how they have to attempt a CISA question. So there is always a gap where they feel a difficulty in attempting a question. So there is some kind of a fear. So to just get out of the fear and to understand how they have to read the question, how they have to attempt. So this session we will take up some practice questions and I will explain it to you as to how you have to go through the question, how you have to attempt, how you have to read a question, and what is the process that you should follow during the process of attempting the answers. Yeah, so to give a brief introduction about me, I am Ashwini Srinath. So I had been into finance background. I am a chartered accountant and I have been into the field for 11 years. So post which the last 3 years I found interest for information security, and I had been quite interactive with CISA aspirants after me clearing CISA, and I had been a trainer with INFOSEC for past one year. So that's an introduction about me. A disaster recovery plan for an organization's financial system specifies that RPO objective or a recovery point objective is 0 and recovery time objective is 72 hours. Which of the following is a most cost effective solution? A hot site can be operational in 8 hours with asynchronous backup of transaction log, distributed data system in multiple locations, updated asynchronously, synchronous updation of data and standby active systems in a hot site, synchronous remote copy of data in warm site that can be operational in 48 hours. So on this question, again, it relates to RPO and RPO. So RPO, they are saying that it is 0 and RTO, they are saying it is 72 hours, meaning RPO relates to data loss and RTO relates to downtime. So in that, they are saying 0 in the case of RTO, so that you cannot bear with any of a data loss. So in that case, it says that you cannot bear with the data loss, meaning it should be synchronous. So synchronous updates of data. So A and B is eliminated because it speaks on asynchronous backup, which is not the right answer. So it can be either C or D. So under C or D, what is a keyword that you have to identify to finalize on the right answer? So the right answer here is D, synchronous remote copy of data in a warm site that can be operational in 48 hours. So what is a keyword? They are saying on most cost effective solution. So that is a keyword. They are saying it is a cost effective. Hot site is comparatively high cost. So compared to a warm site. So D is the right answer. Generally, people will identify a keyword as RPO and RTO and answer based on that. But however, the keyword here as well is that there is a cost effective solution which helps you to finalize on that, and D is the right answer. Synchronous remote copy of data so that you ensure that RPO is 0 in a warm site that can be operational in 48 hours. So D is the right answer for this option. So understanding RPO and RPO concept is right. Behind that, you have to understand the concept behind most cost effective. In that, it is tested and which is most cost effective, hot site or warm site. So D is the right answer. So if a question like this is very difficult, then the weightage for this question will be comparatively high. So it will have a value of 500 points compared to 200 to 800 score. It will carry a higher point. Yeah, if you are able to answer this right, then your scoring will be comparatively high. So D is the right answer for this question. Which of the following would be most important for an auditor to verify when conducting a business continuity audit? Data backup are performed on timely basis. Recovery site is contracted for and available when needed. Human safety procedures are in place. Insurance coverage is adequate and premiums are current. So this question is specifically related to importance in the BCP. So in the case of business continuity audit, which is more important? So the first and foremost, the business continuity planning will always define that human securities or the human resources of the organization are very important in place compared to other processes. So C is the right answer, where human safety procedures are in place. Sometimes the question is very clear. Sometimes the question speaks on what is the evacuation plan. So whenever they speak on evacuation plan, that is related to human. So the question or the concept behind this is always the same. Human safety is always the first, but sometimes they could be trick on these options as to ensure that you understand what is relating to what. So it has to be very clear that evacuation plan is related to human resources. So C is the right answer for this question. An organization has a business process with a RTO equal to 0 and RPO close to 1 minute. That implies that the process can tolerate a data loss up to 1 minute, but processing must be continuous. 1 minute of processing interruption, but cannot tolerate on any data loss. Processing interruption of 1 minute and more, but both D option, both the data loss and processing interruption longer than 1 minute. It is a very simple question if you understand the concept of RPO and RTO. is a confusion on RPO, RTO. So concept remains the same. As I told, RPO relates to data loss. RTO, which is a recovery time objective. Always remember that time with a downtime. So RTO relates to downtime. How long the system can be down. So how long the organization can bear with the data losses point objective. So they are saying that recovery point objective close to 1 minute, so that the data loss can be up to 1 minute. So in that case, the data loss up to 1 minute, but the processing must be continuous, so that there is no downtime. So A is the right answer in this question. So understand RPO relates to data loss and RTO relates to downtime. So then it will easily you will be able to identify what is what. So if they say that RPO can be close to 1 minute, so that you can have a data loss up to 1 minute, but RTO is zero, meaning it should be continuous. So there should not be any downtime. So that means the processing must be continuous. So A is the right answer for this question. Which of the following types of pen test or penetration test effectively evaluates the incident handling and response capability of the system administrator? Targeted testing, internal testing, double blind testing, external testing. Now the question is relating to the pen testing, which is really penetration testing, which relates to domain 5. So domain 5 relates to cyber attacks. Pen testing is covered as part of domain 5. Pen testing or penetration testing is part of our ethical hacking, is a separate process as such, but you should have an introduction as to what means what. So detailed knowledge is not required, but you should understand what is what. So under pen testing there are 4 types of testing, as you see here: targeted testing, internal testing, double blind testing, external testing. So what means what? So targeted testing, targeted setting is that there is a specific portion of it which is targeted, or a specific part of a software which is targeted. So both the IT department of the organization plus the pen tester or ethical hacker is involved in that, where they target a specific process or a specific system to work on it, to understand what is a vulnerability here, how they can restrict that. So that is a part of targeted testing. Internal testing is within the organization. There is not an external hacker or external party that who is hired. So within the organization they have an internal testing as well to the process as to how it happens, whether there is any internal attack that can happen, maybe from the past or from the organization's own employees. There can be an internal vulnerability that can happen, not the threat is from an internal source, so will be clarified as part of internal testing. What is an external testing? External testing, there is an ethical hacker who is hired and the organization is aware of it. This is very important. There is an external hacking that is done, and the organization is well aware of that there is an ethical hacker who is hired, who is working on it to check on the system. So the IT department of the organization is aware that there is something that is happening to do check on the systems. That is part of external testing. Double blind testing, what is a double blind testing? Meaning both of the people are blinded. So in that case, what it means, the ethical hacker is not given any detail. For example, he is given a detail as to go and hack XYZ system of ABC company. So that is what is the information that is given for the ethical hacker. Other hand, the organization's IT department is never aware that there is a ethical hacking that is happening. So in that case, what happens, it is like a true hacking or a true attack that is happening in the organization, because ethical hacker is doing an hacking as well. The IT department is not well prepared to see that hacking that is happening. So in that case, that is more effective. That is like a real attack that is happening, but an informed attack which is happening. So double blind testing is the effectively evaluates the incident handling capability of the system administrator. So C is the right answer, where it is a double blind testing. So if someone is going to ask you which is the best option in the ethical hacking, or best penetrates or best helps in understanding the internal control system, it is double blind testing, where both of the people are not aware and they are supposed to do an hacking and the other people is supposed to react to it. So that is like a real hacking that is happening. So double blind testing is the answer for it. To understand the right answer, you have to justify, or you should understand all of the options here and justify that why it is wrong. Yeah, so C is the right answer for this question. When reviewing a digital certificate verification process, which of the following findings represent the most significant risk? There is no registration authority for reporting key compromises. Certificate revocation list is not current. A digital certificate contain a public key that is used to encrypt messages and verify digital signature. Subscribers report key compromises to the certificate authority. So here the question is relating to domain 5 and 4 as well. So here it is speaking on digital signature and more related to security aspect as well. So this question differs from domain 4 to 5. They can rank the question either in domain 4 or 5, but basically related to domain 5, which relates to digital signature. So digital signature on the certification, it is certification. You have to understand how a digital certificate is generated, how it is issued, who will issue. So there is a registration authority, there is a certification authority, and there is something called CRL, which is certificate revocation list. So there is two keys as in the public key and a private key. Private key is kept private and the public key is shared to encrypt or decrypt the message. So in that case where there is a public key which can be shared, the possibility of having an issue or having a attack based on the public key is very high because it is being shared. So private keys are also always kept private, so the type of attack or the probability of having an attack is very less. So comparatively, and that is the reason you have a PKI, which is public key infrastructure, to who maintains the public key and match it with the related private key. So in that case, auditors should be concerned more related to security aspect of it. So if a certificate of a public key is compromised, then the related private key on the public key should be blocked, meaning it should be included as part of CRL. What happens if it is not part of CRL? There can be breach of it. So if a public key is already compromised, then it can get attack the private key along with it, and the data gets corrupted or the data gets compromised. So in that case, your CRL, the certificate revocation list, should be up to date. Now imagine that you have a debit card, right? And your debit card, when it's lost, what you do immediately? You call the bank and block it immediately. So it is added that even if someone tries to use that card, it will not be valid enough, right? So that is part of the certificate revocation list. So the certificate revocation list or the CRL should be very much current. So B is the right answer. A certificate authority can assume the responsibility if there is no registration authority. Correct? There is an administrative responsibility that is given to a registration authority. So there are two people who is CA and an RA. CA is the authority. For example, imagine that the certification authority is ISACA, who provides you the certificate. You have an INFOSEC where they enable you to get a membership, right? So he is another person who is working on your behalf to get yourself registered with ISACA. What if INFOSEC is not available? The ISACA itself can get you registered. You can take a step and you can yourself get it registered, right? So that is not an issue. So a certificate authority can assume the responsibility if there is no registration authority. If a certificate revocation list is not current, then then there could be a digital certificate that is not revoked but can be used for unauthorized or fraudulent activities when the public key is compromised. Digital certificate can contain public key that is used to encrypt the message and verify digital signature. Therefore, there is no risk. Subscribers reporting key compromises to CA is not a risk because reporting this to a CA enables the CA to take the right answer. So that is the questions that I have now. So hope with this you will be able to attend at least have an understanding as to how you have to read a question, how you have to attempt a question, how you have to justify the question, and how is that you have to prepare yourself for the concepts. Thanks everyone.